Tonight, the First Minister is heckled at a vigil for Israeli hostages being held in Gaza. The chant started after John Swinney said he supports the recognition of a Palestinian state. Also on tonight's programme, campaigners say the compensation scheme for victims of the infected blood scandal has ground to a halt.
I want everyone to know what the NHS did to these people and my dad. And not just the people that have been infected, but their families and everybody that loves them.
Megan's dad Campbell's hep C went undiagnosed for 30 years and affected his entire life. One of the Scots who was on board the Gaza flotilla, which was intercepted by the Israelis, returns home.
And coming up in the sport, who do Rangers turn to next as they begin the search for a fifth manager in just 3 years?
Hello, I'm Laura Miller. This is Reporting Scotland. The First Minister has defended speaking about recognising the State of Palestine at an event to mark 2 years since the October 7th attacks on Israel. John Swinney was heckled over the comments during the event at the Scottish Parliament yesterday. One of the organisers of the vigil says it was completely unnecessary for him to talk about the Palestinian state at the event. Our political correspondent David Wallace-Lockhart reports.
Come up right now.
Even before John Swinney took to the stage at yesterday's vigil, there was some isolated heckling.
Please show respect for everybody and don't do that again, please.
But most of his speech, captured on mobile phones, where he condemned the killing of Jewish people and stressed the importance of their safety, was received respectfully, until he raised the issue of Palestinian statehood.
And that we can begin to take the steps to find a route to peace for the people of Israel and the people of Palestine who must live together in the Middle East. And that is why I support the recognition of a Palestinian state, because I think it is the route.
One of the event organisers, and the man who introduced the First Minister yesterday, explained what he thought led to that reaction.
I don't understand why he had to bring that up. The event wasn't about that. The event was about the safety of the Jewish communities. The event was about remembering the hostages and the people that were killed. It was not about recognising a Palestinian state. It was not about the politics of the problems in the Middle East. It was about the state of what's happening to the Jewish community.
This is John Swinney just spelling out where he stands on this issue, and surely people want their politicians to be honest.
In my experience, politicians would like to be honest, but they don't have to say everything at every point. And he could have been honest enough by saying, we want peace for the Israeli and Palestinian people, and I hope one day it will come and the Scottish government will support it. It didn't have to go any detail about the recognition of the state.
A Scottish Government spokesperson said that John Swinney attended to stand in solidarity with Jewish communities in condemning all forms of violence towards Jewish people and in memory of those who lost their lives in the 7th of October attacks. He has been clear that there is no place for anti-Semitism in our society.
Thank you for enabling me to speak today.
Video footage suggests a hostile reaction from many yesterday, but others did applaud the First Minister. A reception that highlights the complexity and sensitivity of this issue. David Wallace-Lockhart, Reporting Scotland.
He spent just 123 days in charge, the shortest managerial reign in Rangers history. Russell Martin's sacking now means the club is looking for its 7th new team boss in 4 years. Fans' anger had been palpable yesterday as Martin needed a police escort to get out of the stadium after a 1-1 draw at Falkirk. With his departure comes speculation about who and what comes next for the Ibrox club. Here's our sports news correspondent, Chris McLaughlin.
With protests out the front, Russell Martin was forced out the back after what was to be his last game in charge. Fans had surrounded the team bus in Falkirk demanding his removal. For his safety, the car that eventually got him out was given a police escort. Hours later, the statement most Rangers fans had been calling on for weeks. It was short and to the point. While all transition periods require some time, it said, results have not met the club's expectations. Further updates from the club will follow in due course.
Rangers weren't getting better. Their underlying numbers, their expected goals difference is bordering on zero, which after 7 league games, after a net spend of 20 million, I think just demonstrates how poor they've been. And when things aren't getting better, when a situation is broken, you need to pull the trigger. But this has been an absolutely calamitous summer.
Yesterday's performance and result was clearly the final straw for a board that had referred to Russell Martin in the summer as their standout candidate. Just one league win in 7 was never going to be enough. Even those who know Russell Martin could see the writing on the wall.
Results dictate everything. As I said, that's it. And you need to make sure you get them quickly while you try and make change. But you see it all over the world now. That is the norm.
But questions will continue about the men who appointed him. Chief Executive Patrick Stewart and Sporting Director Kevin Thelwell. This morning, after the dark clouds finally burst, the fans had their say.
He's the worst Rangers manager in my lifetime, and I remember every manager except William Milton. They don't trust Thelwell or Stewart. They're no fit for the post either.
I think he was getting blamed for a lot. To me, it's the footballers that play football.
He was the 4th man in the dugout in 3 years. But after poor performances and protests, he's gone. And the soap opera on the south side of Glasgow continues.
Well, Chris is at Ibrox for us tonight. And Chris, within the last hour, we've heard from the owners.
That's right, Laura. The chairman, Andrew Kavanagh, and the vice chairman, Parag Marat, an open letter to fans just in the past half hour, and they're pretty frank in what they're saying. They say, we know you are frustrated, we are too. We did not get this right, and it's our responsibility to fix it. They go on to say work is progressing across the club, building a stable leadership and football structure under Patrick and Kevin's guidance. That's Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell, the Chief Executive and Sporting Director, that some fans would also like to see removed from the club. It looks like they will stay on. A rigorous recruitment process is underway, they say. The two of us are deeply involved, and they finish by saying, we intend to earn your trust because we all share the same goal, restoring success to Rangers. Now, I think, Laura, this is an open letter that will be broadly welcomed by the fans, but let's be honest, this is a letter that the chairman and the vice chairman would never have wanted to write in the first place. I think they know now, because they got the appointment of a new head coach so spectacularly wrong, they know they have to get the next one right. The next stage for them, the next big appointment for them is crucial, and they know it.
OK, Chris at Ibrox, thank you. It's 5 decades since the first patients were given tainted blood products on the NHS and contracted infections of HIV and hepatitis C as a result. Megan Clay's dad, Campbell, was one of the 30,000 or so victims caught up in the infected blood scandal. She says his Hep C went undiagnosed for 30 years and affected his entire life. Now lawyers representing the victims say a scheme to compensate them has ground to a halt. Suzanne Allen reports.
He was a really good dad growing up. I was a bit of a daddy's girl. We used to go cycling quite a lot and swimming every weekend.
Megan Clay's parents separated when she was young, but she spent a lot of time with her beloved dad, Campbell McPhee. After a few years, the relationship changed. He wasn't showing up for her anymore and always seemed to be ill, leading Megan to feel she wasn't important.
As I got older, my dad was sick a lot, and I felt like he was bailing on me quite a lot. And for other reasons at the time, I thought that he was kind of lying about being ill.
Campbell had been back and forth to the doctors his whole life, feeling constantly ill, with no answers despite numerous blood tests. One day in 2019, while listening to the radio, he heard a victim of the infected blood scandal talking about having hepatitis C. It was a light bulb moment. In 1988, Campbell had a blood transfusion at Raigmore Hospital in Inverness. 30 years later, doctors confirmed he'd contracted hepatitis C from infected blood.
He was angry, understandably. I also felt at the time that he felt a little bit of shame too. He died in 2024. He got his diagnosis in 2019. And over those last few years, he wasn't himself.
Do you look back and think how your relationship could have been different with your dad?
I feel a lot of guilt, a lot. If I'd known then what I know now, I think our relationship would have been a lot different. Would have been better because I had my dad.
But it's not your fault.
I know.
It isn't your fault.
I know, I still feel guilty though. I wish I'd been there for him now.
The Infected Blood Inquiry found that blood products were sought from high-risk groups like drug users and prisoners and not routinely screened. Last year, the government set aside £11.8 billion to pay compensation to victims. Before he died, Campbell McPhee got an interim payment. However, there's been criticism compensation is glacially slow.
The scheme is just ground to a halt. As far as we're concerned, the vast majority of cases that we have are all just sitting there. There's a risk people are dying whilst they wait.
We asked the Infected Blood Compensation Authority why it was taking so long. It told us it's opened claims for almost all of the living infected people who are registered with a support scheme and made more than £1 billion in compensation offers. It's not about the money for Megan, it's about pain, apology and acknowledgement for the victims and their families.
I want everyone to know what the NHS did to these people and my dad, and not just the people that have been infected, but their families and everybody that loves them.
Megan Clay ending that report from Suzanne Allen. Now, one of the 4 Scottish activists detained by Israel as part of a flotilla of aid to Gaza has returned home. Margaret Passetta is back in Glasgow after the boat she was on was intercepted last week. But the 3 other Scots taken into Israeli custody have not yet been released. Earlier today, more than 170 other activists were deported by Israel. Well, reporter Hope Webb is across this story. Hope, just bring us up to date then. What's the latest?
Well, Margaret was greeted by a crowd at Glasgow Central Station this evening after she returned to Scotland, like you mentioned there. Now, she set out as part of this global summit flotilla that was aiming to take foods and medicine over to Gaza. Many of those taking part are experienced activists, including Margaret, and will have factored in the risk of arrest by Israeli forces as part of their journey. And of course, we now know that last Wednesday, their boats were intercepted 70 nautical miles off the Gaza coast, and over 400 people were detained by Israeli forces. She spoke to us in the last hour alongside her husband, John.
I'm feeling sad for the people in Gaza. That's the main thing in my mind, and I'm upset. We were so near when they took us over. Obviously it's great to be back. That was, what, 6.5 weeks, wasn't it? Yeah, I mean, not seeing my husband and my daughter and my granddaughter, but yeah, my spirits are good. They're never going to break, they're never going to break our spirits. Never.
So like you mentioned, 170 people, including activist Greta Thunberg and Margaret, of course, have now been deported. But from what we understand, not included in that number is Margaret's fellow Scots. So you have Jim Hickey, Sid Khan and Yvonne Ridley included in that. All available information points to them still being detained in Israel.
So what is happening with the others then?
Well, today I got the chance to speak to Sid Khan's wife, Isma. She said that she did have word that Sid and the others managed to get a visit from British consul today. From what she understands, Sid's spirits are high, but he is taking part in a hunger strike, so she's naturally worried for his health. She also doesn't know when he and the others are going to be deported. Earlier today, First Minister John Swinney said he's very concerned about their well-being and that the Scottish Government is in ongoing talks with the Foreign Office. In a statement, the Foreign Office told us it's supporting a number of British nationals who've been detained and are in touch with local authorities. Meanwhile, in a tweet today, the Israeli Foreign Ministry confirmed that 171 of those detainees, or provocateurs as they named them, had been deported. It also goes on to say all the legal rights of the detainees were and will continue to be fully upheld.
OK, Hope, thank you. A suspect has appeared in court accused of murdering a man whose remains were found at Loch Lomond. David McCall allegedly assaulted Graham Wright, whose remains were discovered at Ruadú near Firkin Point last month. McCall is also accused of attempting to defeat the ends of justice. He made no plea or declaration and was remanded in custody to appear at Glasgow Sheriff Court again at a later date. Now, how did you fare in Storm Amy then? Well, almost 5,000 properties are still without power this evening after a weekend which saw many parts of the country battered by rain and high winds. Scottish and Southern electricity networks say they've had hundreds of engineers out working to reconnect people today. Elsewhere, travel in the worst hit areas is still being disrupted, as Chris McLennan reports.
Storm Amy arrived on Friday, bringing high winds and major disruption. Over the weekend, planes, trains and ferries were cancelled, with trees and debris knocking out electricity supplies. And this is some of the damage caused. This tree coming down on Friday evening, landing on the power lines and on top of this house. It left this family without power for almost 3 days. For the majority of people, electricity has been restored. But for thousands, today was another without power. Many gathering here where warm food is being provided.
It's hard because we've had to check out basically everything in our fridge and find other places to eat. Trying to keep the routine the same for the kids. It's frustrating.
No hot water, there's nothing whatsoever, so yeah, it's a bit of a struggle.
We've got a wee generator to keep our freezers going. It doesn't do everything. We're lucky we've got a caravan, we've got the gas in there. But if we didn't have that, as I say, it would be really annoying.
It's good to see the local communities are all bearing in and they're all mucking out. So, yeah, we'll get by it. We're Scottish.
I'm looking forward to going home and getting a bath.
SSEN said it hoped to restore the majority of people by this evening.
We're working very hard to restore power as soon as we can. We've got a final push today. We've got extra engineers out there, and we're hopeful that we'll restore the majority of customers today, with some more complex repairs going into tomorrow afternoon and evening.
At its height, wind speeds reached as high as 96 miles per hour, but today most transport links had returned to normal. With some without power this evening, the impact of Storm Amy continues to be felt. Chris McLennan, reporting Scotland, Drumnadrochit.
Now, whether it's long working hours, seasonal pressures or living in rural locations, many farmers are not seeking medical help when they become unwell. But a programme of pop-up health surgeries is underway at auction marts across the country. David Knox has more.
It's a busy market day, and while most farmers are hoping for some luck in the sales ring, George McFadden from near Perth is lucky just to be here. His stroke 8 years ago left him recovering in hospital.
I wasn't feeling well for a couple of days before that, and I probably had a wee stroke before, 2 or 3 days before I had the big one. So I was quite lucky. I could have been still lying in a bed yet, like you.
George isn't alone, with health authorities describing farmers as the hard-to-reach group. Studies have found that farmers are much better at looking after the livestock than they are looking after themselves. And when they do go to the doctor, many have left it too late. Something had to be done.
I'm just going to pop this cuff over your arm.
And that's where Health Huts come in, offering all sorts of checks from cholesterol and blood sugars to body fat and blood pressure, as well as lots of advice.
I work in general practice, and we don't see farmers in general practice until it's too late. So the Health Hut is a brilliant initiative for preventative medicine.
Health Huts are the brainchild of the Royal Scottish Agricultural Benevolent Institution, and following pilots last year, they've been rolled out to auction marts across the country.
So we've got a team of about a dozen doctors and nurses. They're all equally passionate about farming and health. I think people are very warm to them. It's easy to engage with them, and that's proving really, really beneficial.
The message from everyone at the Health Hut and stroke survivor George is not to put off going to the doctors.
Make the time and go, because if you were to end up like some of the poor creators that were in the hospital, that's your farming finished.
While most farmers came looking to add to their flock or their herd, a few are going home with a referral to their GP. David Knox, reporting Scotland, Stirling.
OK, Lewis is here with the sport and plenty more from Ibrox, I suspect.
Absolutely, Laura. Straight back to that big sports story of the day indeed. Thanks very much. Hello there, yes. As Rangers are left to rue a disappointing start to life under new ownership, talk will inevitably turn to who should be the next man to manage the Ibrox club. Now, before we assess the possible candidates, let's illustrate how much pressure comes with this job by looking at the previous four incumbents. Well, after Steven Gerrard won the league, Giovanni van Bronckhorst picked up the reins, and despite guiding Rangers to the Europa League final, he was sacked after 1 year. Michael Beale was next. He had been Gerrard's assistant but lasted less than 12 months. Belgian Philippe Clement stayed a little bit longer, winning a League Cup, but was sacked in February before Russell Martin was appointed. Not much job security, but who should be next in the Ibrox dugout?
I personally was a fan of Gio van Bronckhorst. I thought he was brilliant.
I would tend personally to go for a Scottish manager that knows the Scottish League.
I wouldn't mind seeing Davy Martindale coming into Rangers. He knows how to put a winning team out. He's done it in a shoestring budget. What would he do with the players?
They've got to make the right appointment this time, but we've been saying that for how many years now?
Well, let's have a look at some of the names appearing on Rangers' message boards and with the bookmakers. Will we see a return for Steven Gerrard, who famously won the Premiership to stop Celtic from winning 10 in a row? Australian former Rangers defender Kevin Muscat is another manager who's been linked previously. What about Sean Dyche, who left Everton last season? Derek McInnes is flying high with Hearts at the top of the league, isn't he? He used to play for Rangers and rejected the job at Ibrox in the past, while Frank Lampard is doing well with Coventry City in the English Championship.
I can only go from my past experience, Lewis. When I was working in the academy, obviously Steven Gerrard was the manager at the time. I think he's a personality, he's a character, he's got a presence that I think suits the club. I always believe that if you're going to have a successful Rangers, you need to have an edge within the building. It needs to have soul. It has to have everybody pulling in the one direction, and I think that leader has to demand that respect of everyone, and Steven had that.
Now, wins for Hearts and Celtic, who relied on an injury-time goal from Daisen Maeda, only added to the growing unrest among Rangers fans, with the Ibrox club now 11 points back in the title race. Motherwell were leading 2-1 away to defending champions Celtic before they equalised. Then Maeda popped up late on to snatch all 3 points. Pittodrie saw Aberdeen score their first league goal of the season, then another 3 as they hammered Dundee 4-0. While Hearts won the Edinburgh Derby on Saturday night with the last kick of the ball. They sit 2 points ahead of Celtic.
We're nowhere near our level. I can be clear on that in terms of where I would want us to be as a football team. It's nowhere near that level. However, whilst you're searching for it and looking to grow and settle players in, it's important that you win, and that's the demands here. And the players have done that, and it ends up being a fantastic win for us.
Now, amid all of the drama on and off the pitch in the SPFL, there is a massive international game on the horizon. Yes, Scotland host Greece on Thursday, and the national team are potentially just a few wins away from booking a trip to next year's World Cup. Steve Clarke's squad trained at Lesser Hampden earlier ahead of the first match of a Hampden double-header. Belarus are the visitors on Sunday. Scotland and Denmark are tied on 4 points after the first 2 of 6 games, with Greece 1 point back. The group winners will be in Canada, the US and Mexico next summer.
We've managed to do 2 Euros. We get to the playoffs for the previous World Cup, narrowly miss out on that. But that all builds a determination and anger for not making the last World Cup, getting to tournaments knowing that you can get there. First camp we've done a lot of good work. This camp we need to continue that to make sure we're in that position going into November, that we're really confident it's in our hands and we believe we can do it.
And to golf now, and it was yet another special weekend for Robert McIntyre here, who lifted the Dunhill Links Championship trophy at the iconic Old Course in St Andrews after battling the conditions of Storm Amy in style. He shot 3 rounds of 66 to win by an impressive 4 strokes, with moments of quality just like this on show throughout the weekend. The Storm halted play on the Saturday, so it was a shorter 54 holes in the end, but at 18 under, McIntyre became the first Scot to win the event in 20 years, and it followed on from winning the Ryder Cup just days prior.
I've had no time to reflect. It's just been, everything's just gone on so fast, everything's happening so quick, and I'm just building up. I'm just trying to get better every day, every week, and just piece by piece get better. But yeah, I trust everyone around me, my whole team. It's not easy at times. I'm hard on them, they're hard on me, but yeah, if we keep lifting trophies, we'll all be fine.
You did well to lift that trophy as
Quite
well.
the trophy, I was thinking that.
A lot of plenty more Rangers reaction to come over on the news at 7 very shortly as well.
Good stuff. Thank you, Lewis.
Thank you.
Well, coming up on tonight's News at 7 also, Scottish poet Jack Hunter explains why he wants to get more people talking about cerebral palsy. Jack from Inverness says the poem, called More Than Palsy, was written to grab people's attention. Here's a snippet.
Some people say it's a curse. You've got to be ballsy to have cerebral palsy. And this poem is to, you know, shock, surprise people, and it is gritty and it is shocking, but I think it's shocking in the normality of it, because the poem shows different situations that are familiar to everyone that has cerebral palsy.
And that's on the 7 shortly. OK, Christopher is here with the weather. Bit of calm after the storm?
Yes, thankfully, although we're still feeling the effects in places. But today, some very warm conditions for some, Laura. Thanks very much indeed. Very good evening to you. Yes, we've had some lovely warm sunshine across parts of the north and northeast with some blue skies. It reached 22 Celsius at Fyvie Castle in Aberdeenshire before the cloud and rain moved in that was in play elsewhere. So for many it was a rather overcast and at times damp picture, and that rain still with us through tonight. And then it's dry with some clear spells for a time, but then through the early hours a couple of cold fronts moving in, bringing some rain. Certainly not a cold night. Temperatures here in towns and cities 11 to 13 Celsius and mist and murk around western coasts and hills. To tomorrow, it's a cloudy and a damp start, but brighter conditions across the Highlands and Islands, and actually that sunshine should chase that cloud and rain away as we head through towards the afternoon, but it will linger across the far south through Dumfries and Galloway in towards South Lanarkshire and the borders, but at this stage it should be brightening up through the central lowlands and certainly further north, but a good bit cooler compared with today. 16 degrees across the northeast compared with the 22 we saw earlier, and there'll be a few showers just grazing parts of the far north and northwest and the Northern Isles too. Tomorrow evening, that cloud and rain in the south end clears, leaving us with dry and largely clear conditions overnight tomorrow night, so cooler than this coming one. That takes us to Wednesday, and we have high pressure to the south, but really it's an Atlantic influence, bringing some weather fronts, a breezier day with some cloud. Initially, though, dry with some morning sunshine, then the cloud and a few showers in the west and northwest becoming a little more extensive, the cloud bubbling up elsewhere. And once again, temperatures around about 13 to 15 Celsius, but windy at times around the northwest coast. And then beyond that, through Thursday and Friday, high pressure begins to work its way in from the south, and it's going to be with us for some time. Let me show the outlook. This is from Thursday onwards into the weekend and next week too. So welcome news, I should imagine, for the school holidays, with barely any rain in the forecast after Thursday. That's the forecast for now.
And 22, that's positively balmy, isn't it?
It is indeed.
OK, thank you, Christopher. And that is Reporting Scotland for now. I will have your late news around 10:30 tonight. Join me then if you can. In the meantime, from all of us here, enjoy your evening. Good night.